It'd be useful if you keep the abuse to a minimum, Mr. Cotton. That would be really helpful. So, good afternoon. My name is David Butterworth, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority. First, can I say how wonderful it is to see so many old people. Old friends here today to celebrate what is a genuinely historic moment, the extension of the boundaries of the Dales and the Lakes National Parks. It's really good to see so many people here today who have been actively involved in the boundary extension, some over many, many years. My role today is to simply bring a bit of formality to the proceedings, which is why I've changed out of my lycra outfit from this morning's cycle ride. I didn't think that imposing such a sight on you, particularly so soon after lunch, would be very pleasurable, though maybe it would. So, as I say, I'd just like to introduce the formal part of today, and that means introducing to you 4 people. We're just going to speak briefly. Or rather, I hope that they're going to speak briefly. Can I introduce the first of these? A couple of years ago, as part of the examination of the boundary, I met a chap called John Dunning. I knew of him already by reputation. He's been a farmer for 60 years, but is primarily known, I suspect, in the area for the creation of Westmoreland Services, which he's developed together with his wife, Barbara, in 1972. John has been a real help and support in relation to the extension of the boundary, along with his very good friend, Kyle Bloom. I hope that I'm now in a position where I can almost call him a friend, but that might depend on what he has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, John Dunning.
I apologise, I haven't put a suit on, but I do have a tie at home, but perhaps we'll have it on another occasion. But I think my job is to say welcome to the Cumbria, to the Westmoreland Dales, to everybody from Yorkshire, to people locally as well, and to you, Minister, which is a great pleasure to have you here today. The Westmoreland Dales is what we like to call them, but we also acknowledge that it's an extension of the Yorkshire Dales. So we will, as long as we can call it the Westmoreland Dales, we'll concede some things. For example, we're not going to press you today to change the Swaledale head for a Kendal Rough. But that's what's native about here. But there are a few Swaledales in this parish, and we'll accept that. The one important thing that I would add is that this has come here, this extension of the national park, with immense support from this community. And without that, this would never have been triggered. And remember, it was triggered by a threat to this landscape from developments which would have been extremely damaging to not only the future of the landscape, but to the future well-being of the people and the economy of this place. And therefore that resistance locally mounted, and Kyle Blue's been mentioned, but he led it very much in this parish. That resistance ensured that we sustained this landscape. But what followed was a consciousness that we needed to designate it, and it has been regarded as, throughout the years since the first national parks, it has been regarded as unfinished business which needed to be completed. And I only learnt recently that there were a lot of people who had prepared the case very carefully indeed to put to ministers that this was something that needed to be done for a host of reasons. But it needed to be done, and all that preparation was there, and therefore it was put to our ministers, and they have supported it. And that is a tremendous step in itself. But I say that there's been a lot of support, but there were people who were not entirely happy. there were farmers and there were businesses who felt that the imposition of a national park could well mean new restrictions that would limit the development of business. Now, this area is the most sparsely populated area in England. It also has a per capita income which is well below the national average, and we've seen many businesses that were here 40, 50 years ago have disappeared, and new employment hasn't come along on anything like the scale that was there. And we have an economy which is a hill farming economy essentially, served by service industries which themselves are declining. And therefore, it's very important to us in this area that we see the national park being an assistance rather than a drag. And the reputation that the Yorkshire Dales brings here to us is that it is extremely helpful to farming and small businesses in its area. And that's something which we would wish to see develop. But I would like the Minister to take one thought away. Increasingly over the years, national parks have been given a responsibility, a duty at any rate, to help the local economy and assist businesses in developing and diversification of farm businesses. That needs to be made a duty of national parks, so that they have a duty to see that economy being lifted at the same time as the management for conservation and recreation is taken forward as well. The three need to be linked together and moving together. And if that's done, ways are found, because people use their imagination and their skill to do it. If we can achieve those many things, I think all of us will be extremely grateful to have a national park here and to see it moving forward and developing and becoming very much part of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Friend. The second of our speakers this afternoon is Liz Newton. Liz I've known for many years. She's the Director of Landscape Access and Geodiversity at Natural England and is representing that body today. It is her team at Natural England that's been so closely involved in the extremely detailed work leading up to the extension of the Lake District and Yorkshire Dales National Parks. And I had the good fortune to work with quite a number of that team, and I was genuinely humbled at the professionalism and commitment that they showed in their work, which has culminated in today's events. So, ladies and gentlemen, Liz Newton.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Firstly, I just want to say how completely delighted I am to be here, particularly amongst such august company, although I'm beginning to wonder about David after his comments about old and not quite going anywhere near, because I know where I'm heading. But no, seriously, this is such a fantastic day. It really is a significant and historic moment for national parks, but also for Natural England, and it's Natural England's job. We have the responsibility for creating national parks and for reviewing their boundaries from time to time. And I think for as long as I can remember, as John said, this has felt like unfinished business. In fact, we talked about it as being unfinished business within Natural England. And so I know today is the culmination of a lot of hard work for everybody in this room. And I think this is really going to make sure that those fantastically special landscapes will get the care and attention that they deserve. And I know the Yorkshire Dales and the National Park Authority will do us absolutely proud. Just on a sort of personal note, I cycled the coast to coast last year, and we passed through many of these areas. And as we were going, the sweat pouring off our brows, I said to my friends, do you think this should be in a national park? And they were completely astonished that it wasn't, that the places we could see from our route were not in a national park. So on a sort of personal and a professional level, this being here today to celebrate these extensions just gives me such immense satisfaction that, really, really quite an emotional moment, really. And so I'm very glad that, working with DEFRA, working with the National Park authorities, we've been able to rectify and extend the national parks in the way that we have. So, getting an extra 24% for the Yorkshire Dales, an extra 3% for the Lake District. And I genuinely believe that the extensions really will bring benefits, both to the local businesses that John is so concerned about, the local communities and those of you who live here. I think there's some real opportunities that are going to come from this work. I think part of my role today is just to thank the many people and individuals who've been part of this journey, and there are many of them. And this was actually, these designations were proposed back in 1949 by somebody called Sir Arthur Hobhouse, who was the first chairman of the National Parks Commission. And for a whole host of reasons, which I can't possibly go into now, which are now history, at the time, these areas were not included, which just seems like madness now. But, we've worked really hard with a lot of people in the room to remedy that situation. Out of all those organisations, and I'd like to mention one in particular, and I know we're sitting in the Yorkshire Dales, but I know that the Friends of the Lake District, strangely, spent a lot of time trying to get these extensions done, and they deserve some special mention because they were incredibly persistent about that. And I know that some ex-people who work for the Friends of the Lake District here with us in the room, and I'm sure they will be celebrating with us today, and well deserved, because they were really a crucial part of that achievement. I would like to mention my team. John has done it already. Thank you. I know David perhaps has done it. It's because they have worked so hard. I have never met two or three people who will just do anything to help make this happen. Susanna and David are in the room today. They have been so committed, but I know they're also extremely grateful for the time that you all gave them, the National Park authorities and people in DEFRA. And I suppose I really must express thanks to the previous Secretary of State, Liz Truss, who was last year able to accept the inspector's recommendation from the public inquiry and to confirm the legal orders that mean that we're here today to increase the size of the national parks. So, a great day, a lot of hard work. You would not believe the amount of work that goes into doing the consultations, the public inquiries. I remember sitting in the offices in Manchester with boxes of comments coming in that some poor team had to read through and analyse and make the most of. I mean, thankfully, most of those, as we've already said, were mostly positive. Which I think was fantastic, and we were relieved by that, but it just shows you how much work goes on behind the scenes. So finally, really just to say thank you for this morning as well. I've just been on a great walk. It was so lovely to see the areas that are now part of the National Park and to enjoy those, and I think today has been a great a brilliant end to that period of hard work to get us where we are today. So thank you all very much for helping us make that happen.
The next speaker is my boss, the chairman of the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority. He's a great guy. I've always liked him. I was chatting to him on Friday, and he asked me what dress he should wear. I was a little taken aback by that question, because I do know for a fact that he wears ladies' clothing quite frequently, and I am told that he looks quite fetching in it. You may be able to form your own views, but not this afternoon. When I'd worked out that he was simply talking about whether it was formal or casual, rather than the pantomime Dale style of dress for which he is famous in the National Park, I was able to advise him accordingly, as you'll see. So you're not getting Danny LaRue, you're getting Carl Liss. Carl's been involved with the National Park since 1996. For many of those years as chairman of the National Park Authority, and he's brought a knowledge and a passion to that role, which for me as chief executive means he's been an absolute pleasure to work for. Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Liss.
Thank you for that, David. I'm, as usual, quite moved by your introduction. And don't anybody dare say he's behind you, please. Well, first of all, can I say a big thank you to all those behind the arrangements for today. You've done a great job, and I'm particularly grateful to National Park Authority staff, and in particular, Claire Hodgson, who has worked so hard on the preparation for today. Where are you, Claire? There she is. Well done, Claire. I'd also like to thank the residents of Orton Parish, particularly Kyle Blue and John Dunning, not just for today, but for everything they've done to ensure the boundary extension has been made possible. Thank you both very, very much indeed. Now today, as has already been said, is a truly historic day, and it's quite rightly been recognised by the presence of the Under-Secretary of State, Lord Gardner. Welcome, Lord Gardner. We really do appreciate you being here, showing the government's commitment to the importance of national parks. Thank you very much. As Chairman of the National Park Authority, I feel honoured and indeed privileged to be present on such an occasion. Most of you won't know that I've only just been re-elected. I say re-elected because that's what I was, re-elected. This is my third spell as Chairman of the Yorkshire Dale National Park Authority. Now, over the last 3 years, the previous chairman, Peter Charlesworth, who's here with us today, has put in an enormous amount of hard work on the boundary extension. I'd like to personally thank you, Peter, for all that. He's worked tirelessly and pushed people into at last, making a decision on something as important as this. However, I was chairman when the whole thing on the boundary extension kicked off in 2007. 2007. That's 9 years ago. My recollection of that period is that following the valuable efforts of the Friends of the Lake District, who have already been mentioned, we worked alongside Natural England in looking at potential extension areas to the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales National Parks. Now, what an exercise that was. I should highlight the extraordinary contribution of David Vose and Susanna England, who's already been mentioned. I'd like to thank them again for all the hard work from Natural England that they did in the month, and it's involved months and years of work that they put into this project, which culminates, of course, today in the boundary extension. Thank you very much to you both. I'm very conscious that my own role has only been a small part of what has been a huge effort from so many organisations and so many people. Some of them are with us today, but many aren't. I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to everyone who has sought National Park status for this absolutely fantastic landscape, and indeed with its wonderful, wonderful communities who have been so welcoming on every occasion that we've met them over the last few months, and indeed over so many years. The legacy that you will leave for our children and indeed our grandchildren will be well worth the effort. Truly magnificent. Of course, as chairman of the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority, I'm very conscious that in many ways the real work starts now. There's a lot to do to ensure the future growth and vitality of this area and its communities. I've been greatly encouraged by the huge enthusiasm that we've received from so many organisations, so many communities, and so many individuals over the extension of the National Park Authority boundary. And I look forward, along with many others, to be working together to achieve all of our future objectives. So all that remains for me to say is enjoy the rest of the day and indeed this wonderful area. Thank you very much.
In view of my earlier introductions of the three speakers, I'm wondering whether the Minister is thinking, good grief, what's he going to say about me? Well, most people in this room will be aware that there's been a bit of a debate on the EU recently. Oh, sharp intake of breath from a few there. And as a consequence, we have gained a new Prime Minister. lots of new cabinet members, including a new Secretary of State for the Environment and a new Minister, Lord Gardiner. We were thrilled and delighted when Lord Gardiner was able to confirm that he wanted to attend today's event. It showed a commitment to national parks and a commitment to the environment, which was particularly pleasing, bearing in mind that he's only been in post for a very short time and probably has quite a bit on his plate. We're really grateful that he's been able to make time to join us, celebrate the extension of the 2 national parks today. Ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Minister, Lord Gardiner.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for this great invitation, and of course I'm delighted to be able to join you at this celebration. It's my first ministerial appointment, and I, as Minister with responsibility for national parks, will never forget that this indeed was the first of the engagements I very much look forward to in the coming years ahead. I also would like to thank very much Claire Hodgson and all at Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority for organising this event. What an extraordinarily vibrant event, and I arrived to see lots of children playing in the brook, looking at all the aquatic life, and then I actually, when I came in here and saw these incredible birds created by the young and the next generation, it actually brings to life so much about why all of us here are doing what we're doing and why it is so incredibly important. Because the Yorkshire Dales, and indeed the Lake District, are the jewels of the crown, in my view, of the British countryside. And I did want immediately to acknowledge the stewardship of generations of farmers, landowners and countryside managers, and the enormous contribution that they have made to the landscape we see today. It's a wonderful landscape, and it's such a valuable part of the British character, but they're also the key to our future as well. And of course, as we know, the parks, they've shown the magic of rural Britain in the Harry Potter films. They've stirred many with the poetry of W.H. Orton, and they were the backdrop for the humour of James Herriot's All Creatures Great and Small. The Dales attracts 3.6 million visits every year and generates £237 million for the economy. When combined with the Lake District, this figure rises to a massive 20 million visits and £1.4 billion. I think those are figures that John Dunning would see as where there is enormous potential for us to cherish the landscape and to enable businesses to grow. These are immensely impressive figures, providing income for small businesses, and so many of the businesses in this part of the world are with under 4 employees, absolutely vibrant they must be. Jobs for local people, and of course much needed investment in infrastructure. But the parks are not just important for the nation's economic health, they greatly benefit our physical and mental well-being as well, and produce great British food as we have all enjoyed today. They are also havens for many of our most precious plants and animals. People from home and abroad come to enjoy the national parks, and we need to make sure these areas are protected and well maintained. So that is why the extensions today are so important. It makes this already stunning landscape in Yorkshire, Cumbria, and Lancashire, where, if we're talking about this national park, bigger, better, and accessible to even more people. Our environment is for us all, and it needs to be accessible, and the opportunities here are huge. Over 2/3 of people in England now live within half an hour of a national park or an area of outstanding natural beauty. I want these for everyone to benefit from the value of these national treasures. Our new National Parks Plan, launched earlier this year, will help connect young people with nature and ensure thriving communities in every park. This plan will engage young people with national parks at every stage of their education. whether it is visiting through a primary school, volunteering at teenager level, or working as an apprentice, our parks can offer real opportunities for the next generation. That's why we will double the number of apprenticeships in national parks by 2020. We will double the number of young people who have the experience of a national park through the National Citizens Service. And we will support these parks in welcoming 60,000 young people per year through school visits. So, today is a day for celebration. It is an exceptional achievement, and as already has been said, it has resulted from an enormous amount of hard work by many different agencies. Congratulations is in order, and thank you to everyone, and I include local authorities, local communities, Natural England, the park authorities, all working as a partnership to help this become a reality. And I think the end result is what is so stunning. Together you have created a new area of parkland that is even bigger than the Isle of Wight. You've created England's greatest stretch of almost continuous national park. Obviously there's a bleeper saying I've done my turn. So this is an incredible achievement, making one of the jewels in the crown even bigger and brighter. And I believe we should all be extremely proud of you, and you should be extremely proud of yourselves. And I really conclude where I started. I was so struck. I looked at the pack, it said Wild Wednesdays, and I thought today was Monday. But the pack that is produced for the young children in discovering the wild places that you have here at large, I think this is the sort of childhood that everyone should have, understanding nature and by it respecting nature. It is the way everyone will understand why not only these national parks should be cared for, but our environment, whether it's in urban, suburban or rural Britain. Our aspiration in this government is to have the cleanest, greenest and healthiest environment that we possibly can. I think that the local community here, with this wonderful, wonderful landscape, and communities who have pulled together, and I know some of this because I had obviously in the House of Lords to talk about the flooding. And I wanted to raise that because during the taxi visit here, there was someone who'd suffered from floods, and I met some people, farming people, when I arrived here who had also done so. And I think what is so moving, really, is the fact that in this part of the world, local communities rallied together. Yes, there were the emergency services that came from a long way away, but it was the resilience of the local community that held all of this dreadful time when you were going through such difficulties, that you were there together, and I was very struck by that. So when I had to reply to statements on flooding, I was very, very much mindful of what you all in this part of the world had had to contend with and how you've come through it, never forgetting, but obviously coming through it. And I think one of the things about why it's so important to have celebrations and why today is important is because there are the difficult and bad times, but there are very good times as well, where we can reflect on what a wonderful country we have, what great British produce the farmers of this country can provide, and what resilient communities we have in our countryside, and why I personally and my ministerial team will be working all that we can to ensure that not only this national park, but rural Britain, for which I will always stand up, but for rural Britain, you deserve the best, and we will be fighting for you to have the best. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I shall not forget today. Thank you.
It just remains for me to thank you for attending today, to encourage you to stay and enjoy the charms of this wonderful community and this wonderful landscape, and have a very safe journey home. If you could just show your appreciation one final time for our four speakers. All the very best to you, and as I say, have a safe journey. Bye-bye.